Taxila, called Taxila in Sanskrit, is an ancient city in Pakistan. The ruins of which are about 22 miles northwest of Rawalpindi. It is an ancient city with a history dating back to 2000 BC. In this documentary, we will study the history of the city and the world's oldest university in it. In ancient times, the city of Taxila prospered because of its position at the confluence of three great trade routes. One from eastern India, which the Greek writer Megasthenes called the Royal Highway. The second from West Asia, and the third from Kashmir in Central Asia. When these routes ceased to be important, the city lost its significance. Was finally destroyed by the Huns in the 5th century AD. In Buddhist literature, especially in Jakarta's, Taxila is said to be the capital of the Gandhara Empire and a great center of learning. Taxila, as the capital of Gandhara, ruled Achaemenida for more than a century. When Alexander the Great invaded India in 326 BC, Ambi, the ruler of Taxila, surrendered and handed over his resources to Alexander. Along with the Macedonian conqueror, Greek historians describe Taxila as rich, prosperous, and well-governed. A decade after Alexander the Great's death, Taxila was absorbed into the Maurya Empire, founded by Chandragupta Maurya, making it the provincial capital of Maurya Empire. There are many places in Taxila that are worth considering, but this city was a center of knowledge and learning. The ancient university here is the subject of our documentary. According to historical sources, Taxila University dates back to the 5th or 6th century BC. Ramayana describes Taxila as a magnificent city famous for its wealth, which was founded by Rama's younger brother Bharat. The subcontinent has a long and respected history in the field of higher education. In ancient times, the country was home to some of the world's oldest former universities. 2,700 years ago, there was a huge university in ancient India where more than 10,500 students from all over the world came for higher education. The Taxila University campus accommodated students from Babylonia, Greece, Arabia, and China. More than 64 different disciplines, including Vedas, grammar, philosophy, Ayurveda, agriculture, surgery, politics, archery, war, astronomy, and commerce fields were taught. Even interesting subjects, futurology, music, and dance were taught at Taxila University. At the ancient University of Taxila, students were admitted purely on merit. In the ancient university, the entire cost of tuition was borne by the students. However, if a student was unable to pay, he could work for his teacher. Students would come to Taxila and study directly with the teacher in the subject of their choice. Taxila's entrance exam would have been a bit difficult, and only 3 out of 10 students would have passed the entrance test. There were almost 300 lecture halls in the ancient University of Taxila. There is also a large library consisting of 3 buildings. This library was called Ratna Sagar. Vishnu Sharma was a great student of Taxila University. Vishnu Sharma's work was consolidated and named as Panchatantra, in which politics, science, and other sciences were taught in the style of a story. Panchatantra means 5 techniques. Panini was another promising student of this university. He was an expert in language and grammar and was one of the greatest grammar names ever written. Charaka was a famous ancient Indian Ayurvedic healer. It was a product of Taxila University. He wrote Charaka Samhita. Taxila University's role as a center of learning continued under the Mauryan Empire and Greek rule, Indo-Greek, in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC. Due to its proximity to India's northwestern border, Taxila faced attacks from the north and west. Thus the Persians, Greeks, Parthians, Shakis, and Kushans have left the destructive marks on this institution. By the time Alexander's troops arrived in the Punjab in the 6th century BC, Taxila had already gained a reputation as an important place. On his return, Alexander took many scholars with him to Greece. In the second half of the 5th century, Taxila was severely damaged by White Han's attacks. They destroyed the entire city, the university, and all the Buddhist monasteries that never recovered. It was gradually abandoned by its inhabitants during the 7th century. Taxila was excavated in the 1920s by British archaeologist Sir John Hubert Marshall, Director General of the Indian Archaeological Survey. Taxila has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Tourists from all over the world still visit this ancient city, and the corridors of which The stories of the city are scattered.